Hello there! My name is Kaylee from Where in the World is Kaylee, and today I am going to go through the process of getting my Jure Sanguinis, which is my Italian dual citizenship through blood rights. I actually had a very exciting day. I literally just walked in the door from getting my Italian passport. So I'm going to kind of go from start to finish what the entire process is. So I just wanted to start out by saying that I was extremely lucky pretty much every step of the way through this process, and things went a lot quicker for me than it does for the average person. So definitely don't expect it to go as quickly. Maybe you'll luck out too and you will get everything done really quickly like I did, but kind of expect that it's going to take you quite a bit longer than the just over a year that it took me. I also want to point out that I am a Canadian, not an American. The process is pretty much the same, although I did go through the Toronto Consulate, and each consulate has slightly different rules when it comes to the paperwork, so definitely make sure you're double checking everything through your specific consulate. So first things first, do you qualify for dual citizenship through blood rights? It is pretty straightforward. As long as you have a direct, unbroken family line to someone born in Italy, then yes, you qualify. So what that means is the family member that you were applying through needed to still be an Italian citizen at the time of the birth of the next person in that bloodline. So anyone who immigrated to Canada before 1977 would have had to give up their original citizenship while naturalizing as a Canadian. If they had given birth to the child after they had given up their Italian citizenship, then that would be a case where it is breaking the family line. So that child would not be getting the citizenship because they would have technically been born to a Canadian or an American rather than to an Italian citizen living in Canada or America. So I'm going to use my family as an example of how the blood rights dual citizenship works. So I got my dual citizenship through my father's side, and I'm only going 2 generations back. So his mom and dad were both born in Italy and immigrated to Canada before having him. So there's a few different ways which you could have the same parents having multiple children, but they don't qualify for this. And my grandparents actually have 5 children, and only 2 of them do qualify. So I'm going to go over how the other 3 are disqualified. So my Nonna and Nonno's oldest 2 children were born in Italy and immigrated with them to Canada in 1955 and 1956. So because they were born in Italy, they've already had their Italian citizenship, and when they went through the naturalization, they would have, as children, they would have given up their Italian citizenship in order to get Canadian citizenship when my grandparents did it. So unfortunately, they do not qualify for it. There are, however, different processes that they can go through in order to restore their Italian citizenship. My dad was the 2nd child born in Canada in 1960, so it would have been 4 years after they immigrated to Canada. So both my father and his 1 older brother do qualify for this citizenship because they were born prior to my grandparents naturalizing, which happened in 1967. So because they were born to Italian citizens living in Canada, they were able to pass down the citizenship to my uncle and my father. And therefore I am able to get it because there's nowhere in that scenario where the line was broken. The only way that I would be disqualified from getting it is if at any point my father or myself had ever declared in some sort of a legal setting that we are not Italian citizens. I don't know why that would ever happen, but that's the one way that we could be disqualified. And then the last way that you can be disqualified actually applies to my youngest uncle. So he was born after the naturalization in 1967, and therefore he doesn't qualify because he was born to Canadian citizens. There was no more Italians in my family at that point, legally speaking. So he was born in Canada to Canadian citizens, so he in no way qualifies for getting this. There is one more limitation that I did want to point out. This one definitely did not apply to me, but it is obviously important to note. So as I had stated, there are no limitations on the number of generations you can go back in order to restore your Italian citizenship. There is, however, one little criteria that before 1948, women were not allowed to pass down their citizenship. So assuming that you qualify, the next step in the process is you're going to need to collect a lot of paperwork. So you're going to be needing to collect paperwork from your family member or ancestor that did hold Italian citizenship at one point, as well as paperwork for yourself and paperwork for every single family member between you and that original Italian citizen. So for me, this was a little simpler because Nonna is still living, so I didn't have to go searching for paperwork. She had absolutely everything I needed, and then it was just me and my father, and of course we had all the paperwork we needed, or it was very, very easy to get it because we are both still living. So in my case, I did luck out and it was super, super easy for me. I didn't have to go on this hunt for paperwork that a lot of people are having to do. So the paperwork that you're going to need from the original Italian citizen are their birth certificate from Italy, from the commune that they were born in Italy, the birth certificate of their spouse, and you're also going to need the marriage certificate, the certified copy of registration of death if either of the people that you're applying through have passed away, and you are going to need the certificate of Canadian citizenship. It does need to be the long form showing the full date. And last, you are going to need an Italian passport, whether it's valid or expired. I believe there are some different options if they do not still have an Italian passport. Again, I was lucky enough that my Nonna still had their extremely, extremely old expired passports, which actually were really cool because you could see the stamp from when they arrived to Canada. So for the paperwork that you're going to need for every single person that is between yourself and the person who originally held citizenship are as follows. You will need the certified copy of registration of birth. In Ontario, you need specifically the long form. I'm not sure if that applies other places, but in Ontario, you do have a short form that is what they would normally give you, but you do need to specifically order the long form. You're also going to need a certified copy of registration of marriage. Again, you're going to need the long form. You will need the certified copy of registration of death if the person has passed away. If not, then you can skip over that, of course. And you will need the birth certificate of that person's spouse. And that one just can be the regular form. It does not need to be the long form. So in this case, the only person between my grandparents and myself, of course, is my father. So I just had to apply for the long forms of some paperwork for my father. And finally, you are going to need the paperwork for yourself. So this is pretty similar to what you're already getting, a couple slight differences. So you're obviously going to need to bring a certified copy of registration of birth, the long form again. You will need to bring 2 pieces of government identification. You will also need the completed recognition of Italian citizenship form. So you do need to fill out a form that you will get off of your consulate's website. And you are going to need your marriage certificate and birth certificate of any children if you have any that are under 18. Obviously, that does not apply to me because I am not married and I do not have children. And for all the paperwork that I did just mention, you will need to bring the original documents, which they will give back to you, as well as a photocopy of each one for the consulate to keep. One other thing that I do want to point out, as I said, I did apply through the Toronto Consulate. There you do not need to get your paperwork translated or apostilled, whereas a lot of places in the States, and I'm not sure about the other the other consulates in Canada, but a lot of other places you do need to get them translated and apostilled. As I said earlier, I didn't have to order any of the paperwork for my Nonna or Nonno because my Nonna did still have all of that. So ordering that paperwork from Italy would have taken a very, very long time. So I was very lucky to only have to order paperwork from Ontario. So I ordered my birth certificate, my dad's birth certificate, and my parents' marriage certificate. The birth certificates were delivered digitally, so I got an email the next day with them. And the marriage certificate, for some reason, was not delivered digitally. That had to be mailed out to me. And that one kind of took a little while to get there, and I'll tell you a little more on that in a bit. So the next step is actually kind of the second step, but it didn't really make sense to put it in that order. So this is going to be that you are going to need to get an appointment at your specific consulate. So you're going to go online, check which consulate specifically you need to apply to for the place that you live. And because a lot of people are very excited that they can get their Italian dual citizenship, this is quite backed up. So when I first checked looking for an appointment, it was over a 2-year wait. So what I did was I checked the schedule. So there's a website that I went on every single day. I'm not kidding you, probably 10 times a day. I would check for an opening anytime, like when's the next appointment available. And after, I think I did this for maybe only like 4 days, I obsessively checked the appointments, and I lucked out and I got an appointment about 3 weeks away. So I booked my appointment. I was like super, super lucky. Again, so lucky that I ended up getting an appointment 3 weeks out instead of waiting 2 years. I had an appointment early in the morning. The night before, me and my dad drove up to Toronto and stayed with his mother. And we went through all of her paperwork, made sure I had everything in order, made all of our photocopies, got everything ready to go for my appointment in the morning. So I went to the appointment, as I said, early morning. Everything went really, really smoothly. I would say that I was in and out of the appointment, or in and out of the consulate in about 30 minutes. It was an easy process. The one issue that I did have was that I was missing my parents' marriage certificate. It actually arrived at my parents' house the day of my appointment. So obviously I had already left the night before, so I wasn't able to bring it with me, but that wasn't an issue. I did just ask them, like, can I just mail it in to you? They had absolutely no problem with that, so I just mailed it in the next day when I got home. So during the appointment, I did fill out my AIR, which is a registration for Italians abroad, and the application cost for applying for your dual citizenship is 300 euros, which is about $450 Canadian or $350 US. At my appointment, they did tell me that I would be receiving an email within the year telling me either that it's been approved or telling me at the end of the year period they would email me and let me know how much longer they thought it was going to be. So this past December, I got an email from the Toronto Consulate, a very oddly worded email. It was kind of confusing, if I'm being honest, but I did get an email stating I was pretty sure that I had received my citizenship, that I had been approved. By December, when I did receive my email, I was, of course, already living in Prague. So I did talk to the Toronto Consulate, and they informed me that I would just go to the consulate here in Prague. So basically, I ended up putting off making the appointment because of laziness for a few months. So I didn't right away start working on getting my passport, but once I did start working on it, the confusion made it a little bit trickier. So I ended up having an appointment made for something that I completely did not need. I believe it was in June, and I waited a few months to get that appointment, and then once I got to that appointment, they realized I was there for a passport appointment, and it was like they had set me up for the completely wrong thing. It was like the wrong day of the week to go, and then they had to make me a new appointment for my passport. So this whole process got a lot slower than it needed to be. It wasn't their fault, it wasn't my fault, it was just the communication wasn't great, and we kind of got really confused there. So it did take me longer to get my passport than it normally would, but all things considered, it took me not very much time at all to get everything done. So I cannot complain, and it worked out well because, funnily enough, I got my passport today, and my Czech visa was up yesterday, so it worked out pretty well. So today, of course, I did go to pick up my passport, and I actually vlogged a bit of that. Today is the day. I am headed right now to go get my Italian passport, finally. So this is the Italian Consulate and Embassy here in Prague, right behind me. So I was just in the consulate, but it was about 8 million degrees, so I decided to step outside while I waited for my passport to print. But they fingerprinted me and I am all set. They did put my middle name as basically my first name is my first and middle name, which means that my passport for Italy is going to have a different name than my Canadian passport because they don't have my middle name on that, which is kind of a pain in the ass now for buying plane tickets and using 2 different passports. So I'm gonna have to plan ahead which passport I'm gonna want to use in which place in order to buy plane tickets in the future, which is annoying, but oh well, I'm getting my Italian citizenship. But with the fingerprinting, they also only fingerprinted my 2 index fingers, which is kind of the weirdest thing I've ever heard of. So I am just going to wait a few more minutes and head back in and get my passport. So I just got my passport. So now I can stay anywhere in the European Union indefinitely. I never have to go back to Canada. Whee! Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up. And let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions. I will do my absolute best to try to answer any of those questions that I can. And if you want to see more videos like this or videos of me and Athena traveling around Europe, right now we are living in Prague and we do like to do a bit of traveling, definitely subscribe because there'll be another video coming next Thursday.